this organization. I think it's very important. Quick 180, what is it? Well, when we talk about the meeting with the federal government, you mentioned up in Baltimore.
Yes.
Next week.
Yes, sir.
And we talked about what is facing ports today and what are the challenges that are going on with regard to the flow of empty containers. Now, I'm not going to use the word congestion but one time, and I just did. I want to talk about the flow of containers. Everybody in this room knows that the growth of imports has been phenomenal in your careers. The growth of exports, not so good, but growing. That's only going to continue to happen. And infrastructure cannot be built overnight. You cannot replicate NIT. NIT was built as a marine terminal in 1968. I can tell you I was there in 1970 at the beginning of it all. It hadn't changed all that much. Yeah, there have been some improvements, but the land mass is pretty much the same. PMT was formed in 1969. Looks pretty much the same as it always did. Newport News Marine Terminal, same. Looks exactly the same. The only new infrastructure we have brought to this port in 35 or 40 years is the new Virginia International Gateway. That's it, folks. And if you think that there's going to be another marine terminal come up on the site somewhere, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to make some improvements at the gates. Great idea. They're going to have 564. Great idea. What's going to change this industry is a new way of doing business. That's what's going to help you grow your income. And I'm going to give you two figures that I think you'll find very compelling, maybe more than two. Last year, 2013, there was 1.3 million gate transactions at the marine terminals in this port. Of that 1.3 million transactions, 350,000 of those gate transactions were export loads. Now, in order to have an export load in the traditional business environment, an empty has to go out to the customer. And guess what? As it's out on the street, it's passing another empty coming back from a customer. And the net result is an empty in the gate and an empty out the gate. And for every export load that goes to this port, 350,000 of them, there are 700,000 empty gate transactions. 700,000 empty gate transactions at the marine terminals and the CYs. Of the 1.3 million, there is the opportunity for a new business model. Empty containers passing each other on the street. Everybody knows this as street terminals. I would guess that less than 2% of these transactions are conducted in the business world today because there is no method of making it happen except the new method that was created by us, Quick 180. What is Quick 180? Quick 180 is a software company that has developed a method of matching exporter requirements with import empties that are available on the street. How does it start? It starts this way. It starts first with, we're going to talk about the motor carriers, and we're going to talk about you as drivers and independent owner operators. Because there's two distinct, separate functions going on here. First, let's talk about the motor carriers. If an export motor carrier needs an empty container and he uses the Quick 180 system, here's what he does. He goes in with an export booking number. You're all familiar with export booking numbers? Mm-hmm. Okay? He goes in, he puts in an export booking number. As soon as that booking number is put into our system, through our computer systems, we identify the size, height, and type of empty container needed to fill that booking. We know that, and we fan that out to all of the import motor carriers who left the port with a loaded container that fit that description. Only the import motor carriers that has the exact size, height, and type to fit that booking will be sent the information that there's a request on the street for an empty container. We send to the import motor carrier not only the fact that there is a need for a specific size, height, and type, but we send to that import motor carrier the exact container number that fits that bill. And we do that through our computer system. And we have locations for the exchange of these containers on the street in locations that are convenient for you and locations that are convenient for the export motor carrier. Now, is that understood what we're attempting to try to do? Something that maybe some of you are familiar with. If we are successful in doing what I think we can do, what I believe we can do is eliminate of this 700,000, I think we can take away 600,000 gate transactions off the gates. That is money in your pocket. Because you're not having to go to the marine terminal in the midst of a flow of empty containers that is just going to get greater and not less, and you are not going to have infrastructure to meet that demand. We as a port are going to have to work smarter. This is a smarter way of doing business. Yes, sir.
It looks very great. The question is, how does the money change?
The export motor carrier pays a transaction fee for a Quick 180. It's $13. $13 is paid by the export motor carrier only. The import motor carrier pays nothing. The steamship lines pay nothing. The terminal management pays nothing. The expense is what we think to be nominal. And we kept it that way because we want this to be an information exchange, just like the exchange that occurs when you buy the newspaper in the morning. You go and buy the newspaper because why? Because it's got information in there that you need or would like to know that happened yesterday and it might happen tomorrow. The export motor carrier makes a decision. If my driver can save time in the port, can save time at the CY, and I can figure out what that cost is, and I can pay $13 to avoid that cost, then it's good for me. And if it's good for the export motor carrier, he puts the request in. And only if the request is filled by an import motor carrier is there a charge for $13. You can put in all the requests you want to. We'll publish all of the booking numbers you could ever imagine. And if nothing happens, nothing happens. But if one of those empty containers fills that request at a location that is both convenient for the export motor carrier and convenient for the import motor carrier, then a charge of $13 goes to the export motor carrier. We're not attempting to try to get rich on this thing. We're simply trying to make a service available that we know absolutely addresses the issue of the future. Yes, sir.
Quick question, containers, the boxes are owned by the shipping lines. What are you guys doing to work with them, or do they play a role?
The ship lines play a role. They have to participate by telling us two things. Number one, who are the motor carriers that are approved to haul for that particular ship line? They do that through something called the UIIA terminal fee service. And number two, they accept our EDI transactions of what's called the 322 transaction set, which is simply what you call an EIR or a TIR. Okay? Now, let's talk about that a minute. Every one of our transactions end up with you getting what do you call them, EIRs or TIRs?
EIRs.
Okay, EIRs now, okay. Every one of our transactions ends up with you getting an EIR exactly like the EIR you get at the CY. Exactly like it. Not close to it, exactly like it. You have a documentation that you have dropped off an empty container. You have a documentation that you picked up an empty container. We transmit that information electronically to the steamship line. That's the second thing that we request of steamship line participation. Terminal feed service for who's our authorized carrier, and accept our electronic EDIs for the EIR. So that's how the system works. Now I described to you what goes on between two motor carriers. An export motor carrier and an import motor carrier, and that's called the pre-arrangement. They have pre-arranged to do this. Once they have agreed to do it, then we send it, then we have software available to both the import and the export motor carrier to text message you a message that goes like this. You, independent owner operator and driver, would you accept the mission to drop off your empty container at this location described in this text? If you accept, type in accept. Once you accept it, drop it off and say, I'm here. And the container is damage-free and dunnage-free. And the chassis is damage-free. Both components suitable for the export of goods. Once we know that you have dropped the container and take a picture of it, here it is in the location that we say. We send a message to the export motor carrier. We say, go to the location you requested it. Let us know you're there. Let us know the container is damage-free and dunnage-free. Take a picture of it. And when you do, the EIR will be issued to the import motor carrier, and the EIR will be issued to the export motor carrier, and you as drivers will be sent that to your motor carrier. It's all documented. It will be exactly like what happened at the CY or the marine terminal where you're picking up empties now. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, sir. If you say for instance, you go take a picture, right? And you can go out and hide, say like a flat tire. I get to the Greensboro, so I hit the program in my box. Get there and you hide this tire is flat. You know, is there something in place to fix that tire?
Let me address that issue. First off, presumption is everybody's a good citizen. This is based on good citizenship. Sometimes good citizenship works, other times it doesn't. Okay? So we have a rating system for a motor carrier, and they have a rating system. It's a star rating system. We start off, everybody starts with a 3-star. You can get to be a 5-star, or you can get to be a 1-star. Okay? Or you can be banned from the use of Quick 180. So, good citizenship defined as 3-star. You do it 100 times and or 50 times and you're a 4-star. Give the telephone number.
I wrote it on every one of these.
Oh, they've all got them?
Uh-huh.
Oh, great.
This is the number, 785-9180. Again, do not put in the TLCU, just put the digits in. of the container, and it will tell you if there's a request out there, or it will tell you where to take it per the matrix that Pete controls.
If I may, it sounds like a win-win situation, because I had a situation yesterday where I had an empty that went into NIT, and I was in there for 2.5 hours. So if I can do that, you know, and time with any driver is a
Well, we feel that we're gonna save you hours of service with Quick 180